Unbeknownst to her, the unfaithful wife was the author of the last chapter of a real-life romance book. My wife came back to me pleading for assistance because she found infidelity amusing. I am a 30-year-old man, and my wife is a 27-year-old woman. We have been married for 4 years. It felt natural to us both at the time, even though we thought we married each other very young. At least she was very young. We dated for around a year and a half, and that was sufficient for us. We were aware that we were supposed to be. But I'm not sure whether that's still the case given certain subsequent events. My brothers and I have a jewelry business together. So I have a really good career. We started it from nothing and have grown it to extremely profitable levels, which is always a cause for pride. I am aware that doing business with family may be quite challenging, but for us, it has been an absolute dream. Your experience may differ because we've never been the type of siblings that constantly argue. In contrast, my wife built a charming cafe where patrons could read books, enjoy pastries, and sip coffee. She has always loved reading, and is among those who take great pride in making reading a part of who they are. I'm a hypocrite, but before I met her, those individuals really irritated me. Bite me. Since I was attempting to help her, I must admit that I was somewhat captivated by the concept. As a courtesy, I have assisted her in paying the rent for the space she uses for her cafe. Because it's in a more upscale area of town, it's very pricey, but the business is making money. At least there's no rent to worry about, and that was enough to make me happy. That, I believe, is the background you require. This is when the real tale begins. Although I can't recall the precise moment, I believe it was around. She approached me in March to tell me about this new man who had appeared at the cafe. She said he was quite attractive. As a cure person, I discovered that we could discuss someone's beauty objectively without it becoming a major point of contention. But something about the way she continued to talk about this person was different. He appeared to be the type of smut that women enjoy reading and the kind of manly hero that she reads about. Yes, she enjoys reading such types of novels, just like all ladies who talk about literature do. And it's the most corny kind of romanticism that seems to get people going, so I'll never understand it. In any case, she talked about this gentleman for a while before it ended, but I have to confess that the words she used to describe him were similar to those she used to describe the icy Russian hitman who fell in love with a woman in their apartment building's laundry room. I didn't make that up, sorry. That is taken from a real book that she enjoys reading. That was the end of the day, but she informed me that he returned the next day and they had a lengthy conversation. She claims that he was originally from Serbia and had previously worked as a car dealer before deciding to come to the US in pursuit of a better life. He was seeking for work at local dealerships since that was the work he knew how to perform best, even though it was taking him some time to get back on his feet and regain his bearings. In around 10 minutes, I discovered that he was tall, blonde, attractive, well-dressed, and clearly spoke with an accent. It seems that he was a huge lover of fantasy novels like The Lord of the Rings and enjoyed reading literature set in the American West. It's not like this was unusual because she frequently shares information about her cafe's customers with me. However, she was using really flowery language once more, and it appeared as though she was somewhat fetishizing him. She stopped talking extensively about him after a while since he was no longer novel to her. However, it was evident that he continued to frequent her cafe, and I felt much better knowing that he no longer seemed deserving of lengthy spiels every evening. When I stopped by her cafe one afternoon to offer her lunch, I noticed a man who matched the description sitting in the corner. Admittedly, he was a gorgeous guy, and I was positive it was him. She said that his name was Ivan. Around this time, things start to become a little crazy. She had a silly smile on her face the night she returned home, so I asked her what was going on. She claimed that Ivan had escorted her home and that they had discussed literature extensively throughout their stroll. She acknowledged that she told him when he requested to go on a date, said she couldn't do it since she was married. She said he was truly sorry, gave me a gentle handshake, bid me good night, and departed. When I asked her why she was grinning so broadly, she said, "It's like something out of a book." That aspect annoyed me, to be honest, since it seemed as like she was romanticizing each and every exchange she had with Ivan, and since he frequented her cafe, I was aware of it. They would undoubtedly continue to communicate virtually every day. Again, even though I felt a certain way about it. I thought that there was no need to discuss it since I didn't want to come off as insecure and she could have told him that she didn't have a guy. I had to move on from my sentiments, right? After a week or so, my wife brought home a bouquet of flowers which she immediately placed in a vase, and I realized that this was not the case. She said Ivan had given it to her. Nothing noteworthy. He claimed to have purchased several for a colleague. Oh, and he's got a job now. Since he often notices how hard I work, he felt it would be great to gift me some for her birthday. She was attempting to portray herself as a schoolgirl who didn't know when someone liked her. So when she said that, I felt my head go heated. I asked her directly if she could sense Ivan's strong feelings for her. She thinks the flowers were only a kind gesture, but she stated it was clear, especially when he invited her out. I was perplexed by it since, as a male, you probably don't buy flowers for a girl who turned you down. As a nice gesture, even if it was because she was married. He was still attempting to get into her trousers, or perhaps he was attempting to do it without bringing up the rest of the romantic things. I knew at the moment that he wasn't going to stop very soon since he was enjoying his approaches. I was correct since my wife returned home a little later than normal 2 days later. She didn't notify me that she would be late, and I believe it was over 2 hours later. Since this wasn't the first time she had ever been home late, I called her twice and got no answer before choosing to give it some time. However, she arrived at home in a somewhat vivacious state before I could make a third attempt to contact. You won't believe what happened to me that night. Before she launched into a lengthy speech about how she had shown Ivan the location of the museum, and then they went to grab a slice of American pizza since he had never tasted it before and had only ever seen it in movies. It was the first thing she said. After that, they went on walks, spoke, ate pizza, and did a lot of other things that I didn't really care about. However, I let her continue. I asked her whether she was drawn to Ivan when she finished. She said that I was the only person she was drawn to in that manner, seeming rather horrified and upset. That she was only attempting to greet a visitor to a foreign nation who had no friends or family around to give him a tour and answer his inquiries. All of this didn't really convince me, so I told her up forward that she needed to break up with Ivan. Yes, that led to a major argument, as was to be expected. She said things like I should stop feeling threatened, I was being insecure, and there was nothing there, among other absurdities. Even though I was furious, I managed to control myself and prevent my rage from erupting. However, I refused to back down and advised her to cease all extracurricular activities with Ivan. Since he was a client, it was reasonable for him to visit her cafe, but they weren't meant to interact more. Instead of bringing her out for a tour around town and all that. I instructed her to picture what she would do if a Serbian girl arrived to buy a bracelet. I would understand, she said. But don't we all realize that's a lie? To put it briefly, I slept on the couch. The good news is that I stopped hearing about Ivan and all of his drama, which was sufficient for my mental well-being. But no one is startled there. Once more, I was aware that she would be interacting with him at her cafe, but there was a limit to what could occur there, and I appeared to be very certain that nothing was happening because she was returning home at the usual hour every night, which pleased me. When I unexpectedly entered my wife's cafe one afternoon and found her not there, I felt quite suspicious. Ivan wasn't either, but it didn't really matter because I couldn't be certain he would have been there at that moment anyhow. However, her absence did have a significant impact since it was quite rare. I considered waiting for her to return or asking one of her staff members where she had disappeared, but I chose not to worry too much about it. I noticed her and Ivan walking up the street with their arms clasped together as I was getting back into my car from the other side of the street. It was all I could do not to jump across the street, beat the living daylights out of the guy, and hurl her out. I managed to stay in the car, though. I drove away after watching them enter the cafe. That occurred yesterday, and I've had a hard time processing it. As soon as she arrived home, I wanted to confront her about it, but I believe that knowing something that the other person is unaware of gives you a lot of power. It will facilitate my ability to detect other possible falsehoods. For example, when I questioned her about her day when she returned home, she told me it had been very uneventful and that she had not gone anywhere. Ivan and I don't know where. That's why I'm here, then. Is it better to try to learn more about the truth before I face her directly? I'm leaning toward the latter because I'm beginning to suspect that something is going on behind my back, and I fear that if I confront her, any hope of discovering the truth would be dashed. Please share your thoughts with me. It sounds like your wife's coffee shop would be a great place for both bookworms and coffee junkies. Then comes Ivan, the Serbian hottie, tall, attractive, and with a thicker accent than a Russian novel. He looks like he belongs in a romance tale. Who wouldn't find this real-life persona fascinating? It was almost romantic how enthusiastically your wife described Ivan. We all have our literary crushes, I understand. However, it might make anyone's blood boil to witness her drool over Ivan like he's Fabio on the cover of a bodice ripper. Particularly when she begins drawing comparisons between him and her sultry literary idols. Ivan's flirtatious approaches and only a kind gesture, a bunch of flowers? Correct. Because passionate flowers from a guy who has been rejected speak more about platonic friendship than anything else. Ivan's next kind gesture will probably feature a horse-drawn carriage and a candle during supper. And the walks in the middle of the night? Pizza and giddy museum trips together? Ivan seems to be fulfilling some requirements for a romantic comedy date montage. Your worries were likely not allayed by your wife's response, with her flashing eyes and all. Her insistence that there is nothing to be concerned about reminds me of the times in horror films where the naive character exclaims, "It's just the wind," immediately before being cut off. First update. Hello everyone, this is me, the person from the post about the Serbian man and the wife with the cafe. I've returned with a significant upgrade. I discovered a lot, so let's discuss it. It took me a while to get the guts, but eventually I made the decision that I had to learn the truth at any costs. In this instance, I knew I had to set aside any moral dilemmas I might have had and check my partner's phone, even though I've never been the kind to smile at the thought. So, when she was sleeping, I took advantage of the first opportunity I had to do it. Not unexpectedly, she had been chatting a lot with Ivan on her messaging app. Since it was WhatsApp, I was able to convert the full chat to a text file and send it from her phone to mine with ease. Naturally, I took care to remove the evidence. I came upon a couple of photos of them grinning together in public while browsing her collection. But nothing very damning. I also texted those to my cell phone. Evidence was erased once more. I completed all of that in about 5 minutes and returned her phone to its proper place. I then read everything on my phone, which made it much less suspicious in case she woke up unexpectedly. And my brain was spinning from everything I saw. This is a transcript of a portion of the conversation that I found horrifying. It happened after they had been talking about a book that my wife had suggested to him. Instead of using my wife's real name, let's call her Clarice. The primary characters make me think of us, Clarice. Yes, I also had that thinking. The artistic girl who was caught between him and her lover, and the large, enigmatic hottie. And immediately after that, a message. In several sultry sex scenes. I'm particularly reminded of us in that section. Yes, the sex is always enjoyable. But it's a husband in your situation. Then came a dumb chuckle emoji. Clarice's laugh emojis. Yes, and I believe that's what adds to the excitement and enjoyment. It's really incorrect. Even though I've never cheated, I can't honestly claim that I regret it. That's what makes it so hot, even when it's wrong. Yes. And I hope this never ends. I went crazy about it. I couldn't stay behind her at that time, so I left the home to go for a stroll at 2 in the morning. I would have taken a wild turn. I had a good feeling about it. It felt like I spent 5 hours wandering about the town, although it was only 3:10 when I returned. She was also still asleep. Do you have any idea how it feels to discover that you are being cheated on, but then discover that your wife is making fun of you by enjoying doing everything behind your back? What really pushed me over the brink was the fact that she was taking such pleasure in my ignorance of the circumstances. It wasn't as if cheating would be accepted anyhow. She was still asleep when I returned. I then seized her phone, skipped to the relevant section of her chat with Ivan, and recorded it on her phone. I had to be absolutely clear that this was not a case of doctoring. It was blatantly reprehensible that I had to be the victim in all of this, even if it was obvious that Clarice felt like she was living out one of her foolish stories. She is unaware that I am aware of the impending divorce. This can't really go any other way. I must watch her fall too. I must also watch Ivan fall. I need both of them to suffer, and I need them to hurt terribly. I'm not sure how I'll do this. To be honest, anyone in your position would have followed suit. It must have felt like a series of stomach punches to read that conversation. The entire thing reminds me of the bit about us in sultry moments. Is she enjoying the thrill of cheating? It's a unique form of treachery. Bravo for taking a stroll and maintaining your composure. You handled it like a pro, but if it had been me, I would have most likely made the evening news. As evidence, you even recorded the conversation. Well done. You have the smoking gun now. Divorce is imminent, and to be honest, it's the best course of action. Clarice is going to get a reality check, even though it's obvious that she believes she's living out some sort of twisted romance story. Since you're going to give them both a reality check. I hope Ivan has a good time in Phantasmland. Update no. 2. It has been completed, and it was magnificent. This is the last story of Ivan, a Serbian guy, and Clarice, his bookish but deceitful wife. They didn't realize that they ought to have been far more concerned for me during this entire situation. Allow me to skim the story's dull passages. One day, I parked my Uber across the street while Clarice went to work. I observed the process server enter the cafe and give her the divorce papers in a quite visible way. We drove away after that, which was extremely pleasant. I went to work, and at the end, I was really happy that I had not received any missed calls or messages from Clarice. She was aware that someone had made out with her, and that pleading would not solve the problem. That's how I saw it anyhow. She returned home that evening with snot streaming from her nose and tears in her eyes. To be honest, she looked like a complete mess. Seeing her in that state made me a little melancholy. I put it down to the remnants of the love that remained. It was short-lived, though. She kept asking herself, what went wrong? Was it Ivan? She must have attempted to determine whether she had leaks in her operation before she was unable to determine how much I knew, I realized. Ultimately, I promised her, although I wasn't sure if it was better to tell her I knew about Ivan. I didn't tell her anything else, but I did tell her that I had been holding it in when I saw her and Ivan strolling arm in arm that day. She became brazen at that moment and began pleading with me and calling me foolish. She said that was not a good enough cause to divorce her. She was foolish to continue seeing him, but I was being insecure and nothing was happening between them. I was jealous. She seemed unable to decide whether to insult me or grovel. Ultimately, I told her to leave my home. What she did. The key to the real divorce process. I had a great time with that section. Since I have a lot more money than she does, there is a lot more to lose in a divorce. But there is also a lot more to spend on qualified attorneys, which is what I made sure to do. Are a decent lawyer when you are divorced. It's worth it. I assure you, everyone. In addition to having several photos of the two of them after I expressed my worries about it, I also had the text messages that amply illustrated the adultery. Furthermore, my rockstar lawyer was able to identify transactions in our joint account that appeared to have been related to Ivan. It became evident that she was using our money to pay her Serbian lover boy when he matched the dates on several transactions with the dates in the full text message transcript, in which he thanked her for specific items. Additionally, the lawyer did a superb job of portraying her as a gold digger, which I found entertaining to watch. She gave it her all, but to be honest, I couldn't find anything to criticize. Even though I'm not a perfect person, I don't have any shortcomings that would cause a divorce. I truly had everything I needed at the end of the divorce. I maintained my house and my vehicle, and since I had arranged for her to have a profitable business and committed that rather significant adultery, I was not asked to pay alimony. Judge, I love you. The automobile that I purchased for her was hers to keep. That didn't seem like something I needed to worry about. And the fact that she didn't come out of the divorce completely empty-handed made it simpler for me to accept what I took. This is my favorite part right now. I found it difficult to retaliate against Ivan. It was really challenging. He was leaving the cafe one day, though, and I followed him around the corner and down the street. I slammed him in the jaw after drawing his attention and introducing myself. The pain was unbearable. However, he was somewhat astonished when I used it to break his lip and knock him to the ground. Although I wasn't seeking a street fight, I would have accepted one if one had been offered. I believe he got up and walked away after realizing he had no moral superiority on this one. It was pleasant. He knew he was playing with a married lady, so I wish I could have done more, but it was sufficient for me, and probably the only thing I could have done without facing a felony conviction. Clarice followed. Are you aware that I was paying her rent? It was due again, and it was pricey because she had her cafe in such a lovely area of town. She called me in tears at the end of May, even though it was supposed to be due on May 1st, claiming that she didn't have the money to pay the cafe's rent, which she really needed to do. She kept pleading, but before I disconnected off, I ordered her to sell the car to raise the money for it. I didn't answer the phone when she called many times over that week. When she contacted me to start berating me, I discovered, spoiler alert, that she had sold the automobile. She said that the fact that I was unable to assist her at all was wicked. I told her that it was wicked of her to find cheating on me thrilling and enjoyable. She was unable to respond to it. I'm eager to see how she handles her rent difficulties in May of next year. She will also lose the cafe if the gods would have it, especially because she will no longer have access to my bookkeeper. To be honest, it's been nice. I have a lot of money, am recently single, and am really happy. You can only go on, right? I won't claim that the divorce, betrayal, and adultery didn't hurt a lot because they did. I'm going to do just that. We appreciate your presence and the words of wisdom and support you have given us. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that I won't ever have to write another post. See you. Clarice weeping and snotting all over the place when she gets home? Priceless. I can just see her attempting to go between calling you stupid and groveling. She genuinely believed she could turn the arm and armtail into a light-hearted, amicable walk. Like he's simply my strolling companion, honey. Oh no. Yes, as that is completely typical. What about the divorce? You were a master when you played it. Bringing in a famous attorney and convincing her with the proof, along with the fact that those transactions match her brief romantic messages? That's gold in the courtroom. It must have been an absolute joy to see her depicted as a gold digger. Avoiding alimony while keeping the house and the car? The prize is that Clarice also sold her automobile to cover her rent. Simply said, that is poetic justice. Is she referring to you as evil? Funny. There was no light for her to stand upon. I hope she loses the cafe the next year as well. Karma is an unforgiving friend. Here you are, recently single, wealthy, and having achieved a gratifying triumph. It must have hurt like hell. But you've won. Well done. And I appreciate you sharing this wonderful story. How do you feel about the ops retaliation? Please let us know what you think in the comments section below. We also appreciate your presence on our space today. To ensure you don't miss our next video, please press the notification bell, like, and subscribe. Next time, pay attention.